Welcome back to the Tidarium Hangar, and Merry Christmas from the Tidarium Hangar. This is Mike. Hope you all have a very safe and wonderful holiday coming up. Today I want to talk to you about these wish books from Sears, JCPenney's, Montgomery Ward's, maybe some of them, and a Toys R Us one thrown in there. Back in the 80s, we did not have the internet to see what's coming up next or what's already out. We had to look at all these different catalogs, whether it be catalogs that were pack-ins or these wish books. Last year, I did cover the 1980, and there's some 79 stuff in there, to 1985. This is 86 to 1990. Lots of great stuff in there. So let's take a look at this and reminisce. Coming up. So we're going to start out with 1986. Now I have to admit that I would look through these catalogs sometimes 3 times a day, 4 times, 6 times a day for 2 months leading into Christmas. First off, I want to show video games. In 1986, we did have some Nintendo, and I probably have a few more good pictures of screenshots here, but I used to just look at a screenshot. That's all I had to judge whether I was going to like a game or not when it was coming up. We didn't have video game reviews. We had screenshots. And is this my type of game? Am I going to have fun with this game? Kind of crazy. Next, we have a picture of Rambo, and this is the Force of Freedom line, which I only had a few of these figures back in the day. And it's kind of a funny story because my stepmom bought them for me. Bought me 1 or 2 of everything that was out, which is why I'm probably into everything. But pretty exciting. I didn't know so much of this stuff exists. I don't even remember seeing this in the catalogs back in 1986. I don't remember seeing the playset. I don't remember seeing a lot of this stuff. But the figures, I remember almost every figure because my stepbrother had them. Rambo's still a very fun and relatively affordable toy line to collect today. Now we got into some, what looks like photon and laser tag. Now it's a very blurry picture, and I wish we would have found a better one. But this is so much fun. I think Photon was the lesser of the two. I think that laser tag was the more technologically superior and cooler one. And Photon was, although it probably worked very well and worked the same with the laser light and all that kind of stuff, I had laser tag and I kind of didn't want Photon. But we have a lot of places that had actual Photon places you go to, like paintball courses. Well, they were Photon courses back in the 80s. Remember 1986 being the year of the Lobo one. I don't know if it was 86. It might have been 85 that I got my Lobo. But I got a Lobo. I remember getting these radio control cars. I had quite a few of them. It was a lot of fun. That radio control, the controller, very, very familiar. Lots of fun. And then switching from using a bunch of like 8 AA's to actually using a battery pack that was rechargeable. That saved a lot of time and money. Well, a lot of money. And getting into more cool ones, there were all kinds of different radio control cars back in the day. And although I think that technology's come quite a long way with rechargeable batteries, some of them suckers were pretty fast back in the day. Also want to kind of point out there's some of these ride-on vehicles, and they're styled after older vehicles. Nowadays, you still see this stuff. You still see the pow-pow power wheels and all that kind of stuff going on. You still see all that in the toy aisles. Instead of Eternius, you see that, but they're styled after modern vehicles. It's funny because this is something I learned about last year, and I didn't really know what it was, and now I know what it is. This is Tonka's Steel Monsters. I think it's called Steel Monsters. This is a blurry picture. The thing is that Tonka was known for big, giant metal dump trucks, and one year they just made some stuff that looked like Mad Max. They called it their own thing. Really awesome, really cool. Figures are pretty interesting, but I learned about it from my Mad Max video and a lot of comments saying I should check this out, and I did, and it's pretty cool. I'm going to try to find a better picture for editing. 1986 brought us the 1986 movie Transformers, which, of course, was a dividing line for a lot of collectors back in the day. Some people didn't want to buy into the new figures. They didn't like their favorite old characters that were gone for some reason. I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to spoil the 1986 movie. But still, some great classic characters in there that still hold up today in some cases. The other page on the other side of the Transformers page, we have quite a few things going on. There's 3 different toy lines that are represented here that are pretty interesting. First off, we've got a continuation of Superpowers. I think 86 might have been the last year for Series 3 of Superpowers, because you do see Cyborg in there. But of course, they carry forward figures. They carry forward some of the playset. Maybe the copter was more than 1 year. I'm not 100% sure on that. Then you get down lower to the Defenders of the Earth, which only had 6 figures and what looks like 4 vehicles and a Mongor. Pretty cool stuff going on down there. And then that's an interesting toy line that NECA is really doing a fantastic job with, making modern iterations of those. But I don't even remember those from back in the day, and I might have even had one of the figures, but I thought it was Superpowers or something back in the day. Then at the bottom we have Robotech, which great toy line, lots of fun. I've covered a lot of that on this channel. And yeah, 1986. 1986 is a big year, and this is another fuzzy picture, but quickly going to cover, because we're going to have better pictures of some of this stuff. The Thundercats will have a much better picture coming up, but we have the tomb, Mumra's tomb. We also have the Hovercat. Some of these things that I just don't remember seeing in the store or around at all, ever. But then we have the Filmation Ghostbusters, which I think is a much more fun and enjoyable line to collect than the real Ghostbusters, just simply because of the fact that it looks so cool, but not so enjoyable for the price. But I think the real Ghostbusters, most of that's more affordable. Still fun to see that it showed up in these catalogs back in the day. Here's a much better picture of the Thundercats. And even though I remember seeing Thundercats in catalogs, I don't remember that there was so much to it. I thought, in my mind, they made like 20 figures, of course, the Cat's Lair, and a few vehicles. And like looking at a picture like this is really what I thought the entire toy line was. And there's so much more to it. So much more to it. I did have a Thundercats week. You might want to check that out. Here's one of the things from Toys R Us. Now, I don't know if this was like a pamphlet or like a flyer they handed out, or the front of maybe a book. I do remember seeing a couple of like 3-page pamphlets that would go out for Toys R Us, but you can see a Teddy Ruxpin. Some of these things on here, obviously, a Cabbage Patch Kid. Obviously things that we all either had or saw in the stores back in the 80s. Now, Jim and the Holograms, I didn't really have any of this stuff when I was a kid at all. None of it. But my neighbor did, and so I remember that. And I also remember the show, and the show was sort of like a girls' version of GI Joe in a way. It was sort of fun when you couldn't find GI Joe or Transformers on at the time. It worked. Still, fun toy line to reminisce about. Catalogs also have more than toys. They have regular stuff like a VCR. Really cool VCRs. Back in the day, they actually kind of sucked. They were terrible. But they were super expensive for not very efficient. Only $3.89. Is that the TV or is that the VCR? But anyway, $3.89. $100 off. That's crazy how much cheaper technology has gotten and how much better it gets. 1986, we saw Mask, Kinder Mask. Great stuff. Fantastic. Looked like someone circled what they wanted on there for sure. Thunderhawk and Boulder Hill. Got to get those. More G.I. Joe. Excellent G.I. Joe stuff going on in 1986. Just more and more fun G.I. Joe creeping up. Good old Eternia from 1986. We're getting to live 1986 all over again. So much fun. Definitely so much fun. It's fantastic to see Eternia and vintage Eternia. And now we're going to get the modern iteration. But wow. Just wow. And this is one of those things I might have seen it, not understood the impact of this when I was a kid. Didn't understand how big it was, or how great it was. And I never ever saw it in the store. Moving into 1987, yet another fun year. This is J.C. Penney's cover of the 1987 J.C. Penney's catalog, and fun stuff that we're going to look at. Of course, we're going to look at a little bit of everything from every one of these. This one here is J.C. Penney's with Transformers, and we got to see a Scorponok, and we see a few others in here. On this, my favorite is Six Shot, even though, yes, Fortress Maximus was the biggest one ever for G1. Six Shot had 6 different modes, and it was just a lot of fun, and he looked a lot like his character. So, I mean, for a kid, fun, looks like the TV show, win. So next up we have more Transformers from, I'm not sure which one this is from, but it's a different catalog, and it's got the Air Raiders on the other page. So I have to admit, I didn't have any of the Air Raiders, but for whatever reason I have a ton of those little figures, the little mini figures that go with the Air Raider stuff. But it's still a cool toy line, a whole lot of fun going on right there with these figures and this toy line. And is that a base? Because I don't know much about the toy line, so I'm assuming that's a playset. Pretty awesome. all these toy lines back in the day had play sets. And then with this, we went deep in 1987 with the Headmasters. Was 1987 the year of the Headmasters? Admittedly, I may have some of these pictures in the wrong year, but they all came from the 80s, so that's what matters, right? So on the left, we have wrestlers, some wrestlers. A lot of people really like these wrestlers, and with this is the early day of wrestling figures. We've come a long way, especially when you look at these, and I had a bundle of these that I kind of sold off to a buddy of mine, but I remember having them and thinking these are not the greatest figures, and yet today what we have is so much better. But I think they're kind of bendables. Getting into BraveStarr, though, I do like BraveStarr. It's kind of a fun toy line. I remember back in the day not liking that they were much bigger than my GI Joes. They were too big for my GI Joes. Even though they were cool, there was a lot of cool stuff going on with them, I just felt like they were too big. Nowadays, I actually appreciate the size. It's kind of strange, but I do appreciate the size, and I appreciate the toy line, and I wish they would have done more with it. Of course, you have to have GI Joe. So GI Joe is continuing all through up to 1994. Then, of course, there was some other stuff in the 90s there. But it's funny how you have at the top there GI Joe official product that just looks amazing, and then going down below, I did have the Havoc, and I had the Tricycle, and I always wanted to have the Thunderhawk back in the day, and I think I ended up getting one at a garage sale missing everything. And I also had Zanzibar and his air chariot, so I had quite a bit of this stuff when I was a kid. Fun to reminisce. I've got most of it now. And then getting down below, we have something called Dragon Force, so I didn't know anything about that at all, which still looks kind of cool. It looks like a combination of Rambo and G.I. Joe and some ninjas. And then above that, I'm not sure what that is above that. Is that a knockoff of G.I. Joe? Next, in 1987, we have some Ghostbusters. They are real Ghostbusters. Look like a lot of fun, and I don't know much about these. I can't name all these off myself, what all these other different new monsters are, but a lot of fun. More G.I. Joe. I guess I should have had the pictures reoriented. This is a different book, and it does show, I guess, 1987. Is that the year that this came out? The Massive Defiant, and yes, it was 1987. I had to check. And then, of course, down below, we got Cobra Law, and we've got Sergeant Slaughter's Marauders. A lot of fun stuff. Remembering, you had to buy these things in bundles. You couldn't just buy one figure, and, of course, made those 3-packs perfect for a catalog. Here are some boom boxes for $200. That's crazy. Only $200 for the boom boxes. Something like that you'd expect to go to Walmart and pick up for like $60 nowadays. But back then, $200. So we paid a lot of money back in the day for technology that really was not very advanced. Here's another one that has Transformers. And we've seen most of the Transformers in previous ones there. So we're going to focus lower to where we see some Silverhawks. So we got Silverhawks, we got the Mirage, and we've got the Birds. And then, of course, we have some Visionaries. So I would have thought I would have found more Visionary stuff going on, but this one only seemed to have 2 Visionaries vehicles, which is pretty cool. Don't know about the figures. I'm pretty sure they were able to order those too. And then down below that, we have some more Ghostbusters and Battle Beasts. Now, this is a 4-pack of Battle Beasts, and I don't know the years Battle Beasts were produced. So was 87 the beginning or the end of the line? I'm not sure. Now we're getting into 1988, and 1988, of course, another great year, another great cover. We've got Santa and a little girl and all that fun stuff. Hopefully the cover brings back memories, but also, I forgot that they charged for these things. $3 for this. I think that there was some way to get one for free. I don't remember. But anyhow, here we go with more screenshots for Nintendo. And yes, I remember just looking at screenshots in catalogs for hours upon hours. That was my research. That was my review of a game, was all from one picture. Of course, Nintendo had other stuff going on as time went on, and continuing with the Nintendo, but more peripherals and all that kind of stuff going on. But the one thing that I want to point out, of course, Sega. Sega's a contender in 1988. I guess was the year that they were pushing it in the catalogs. And I remember passing on the original Sega, although a friend of mine had it. I thought it was cool, but kids, you're not rich, you can't have everything, and duplicate video game system was crazy back in the day. And so when the Genesis came out, we'll see some more about that coming up. Here's the Toys R Us one, kind of showing off both systems and that kind of stuff. Video games were big back in the day. Everyone talks about video games today being so big. They were big back in the day. We were really into them, but they didn't control our lives. There wasn't into them. We would play them, and it would finally end, and that made it a lot more fun. More GI Joe stuff in 1988. Now we get to see the Cobra Bug, and we get to see all this great stuff coming from 1988. And with that, you can see that we have a pack of 246 figures. Was number 16 and then number 17. How much were those? That makes them $3.33 a figure. Of course, you have to order 6 at a time, whether you like the character or not. Alright, so we are getting into 1989, Sears Wishbook. And I gotta say, I feel like I remember these covers because I looked at these so much back in the day. Starting out, we got some turtles in here. So this is a pretty zoomed in picture of turtle stuff going on in 1989. 1988 was the year I remember Turtles starting, and I remember getting some in 88, but I guess 89 they ramped up for a lot of good stuff with the Technodrome, the sewer playset, sewer lair. Also, we got some 1989 Beetlejuice, and so this is a toy line that really did kind of like come and go and pass me by. I didn't get anything from that when I was a kid, but some of the stuff looks pretty cool. Or maybe not cool, wacky. Wacky cool. And of course, more and more real Ghostbusters. They made a slew of Ghostbuster stuff. I don't know what all they made. I could never list it for you, but pretty cool. I do like that airplane. More and more turtle stuff. So here is kind of a grainy picture of what we sort of saw some of the stuff earlier that looked pretty good. And turtle stuff, great. Lots more, and well, would we have known in 89 how much more was to come? So the other thing back in 89, and I believe this is the correct year, the Atari Lynx versus the Nintendo. Of course, Atari Lynx was technologically superior, and it had color and a backlit screen, but it chomped through 6 batteries pretty fast. And you had 4 batteries, would last you like 6 or 8 times longer than 6 batteries on that, so Nintendo won. Plus, the games Nintendo had were a lot more fun. They were more captivating, even though they were only in, 4 shades of gray? It's not 50 shades of gray. It's only 4 shades of gray. Okay, 4 shades of green. And more Ghostbusters. More Ghostbusters, more Ghostbusters, more Ghostbusters. I actually have some of those. Pretty cool. I also want to kind of point out there is a really nice picture here of Kid and RoboCop at the top, and then some He-Man at the bottom. So with RoboCop, a very fun toy line. It's not based on the movie, but more on a cartoon show, but then there are some very good movie aspects of some of the figures and characters in it, and of course the vac metallized blue that they used on the fronts of the vehicles, and so the vehicles are pretty cool. The figures are just meh, because they don't have much articulation to them, but it's still a fun toy line overall, and you know, Kenner was one of the best. Then down below, that ship's called Eternia. I think we have another Eternia picture. But this is some new adventures, I believe. Is that what they call it? New adventures in the He-Man Eternia starship? Here's the Genesis. The Genesis does what Nintendo don't. And so, I guess 89 was when the Genesis came out. So it had to one-up the old Nintendo. I remember getting a Genesis as a present for both myself and my brother, and we both just played the heck out of that thing 24/7 for like the first week or two. Here's some of those screen grabs so you can decide what games you wanted, and of course, Ghouls and Ghosts, I literally bought that day one. That was day one, the first game I got, and I played it till I won it, and it was hard. And now it's still hard, but it's not that bad. Not that bad, considering what we do today. Remember, look down at the bottom down there where they have the adapter for the Genesis so you can play your regular Sega games on it. I remember getting the adapter and retro buying cheap original Sega games. It was so much fun back in the day. Of course, we have more GI Joe showing up in 1989. Of course, we have the Python Patrol. And with Python Patrol, why not any of this Tiger Force in there? I guess I hated Tiger Force back then, so I'm not really upset about it. Not mad about it, but a lot of crazy stuff going on with GI Joe in 1989. 89 was the year of the big Batman movie, which really, I was obsessed with Batman, and I didn't even know they made the Batcave. Had I known they made the Batcave, I would have wanted it. So, I don't remember seeing it on the toy aisle, I don't remember hearing about it, I barely saw any of the product on the toy aisle, at all. It was so massively popular back in the day. But I bought the LJN stuff where I got it for Christmas. I got the Batmobile and the Batwing. I didn't think that there could have been anything better. I didn't even know about the Batcave. Looks like 89 had more Real Ghostbusters. I kind of starting to see now why people love the Real Ghostbusters. It was, I can see why people really like it. They just kept coming out with more cool stuff every year. And we've got more Turtle stuff. Looks like more of the same Turtle stuff, but this picture specifically, so you can see down below there, I didn't know that the Eternia Starship turned into like a 3-level playset. Is that right? I mean, that's cool. I had no idea. That's pretty cool. That is, I have to admit. Does anybody remember Pee Wee Herman? Pee Wee Herman Playhouse, and that's pretty cool stuff too. Now we're getting into 1990. 1990 was another fun year, of course, and I do definitely remember this picture of the Wishbook. I guess the later it gets, the more it sticks to your memory. I don't know. Kenner was doubling down with some Batman. So we went from is this still LJN? Yeah, LJN still having Batman stuff. I remember thinking that by 90 Kenner had it. Kenner didn't get it till 91 maybe. So anyhow, there's some stuff 1990 for some more Batman stuff going on. Here we go with some Dick Tracy, some GI Joe, more of the He-Man stuff going on right there. So it looks like a whole lot of fun. Computer Warriors at the top right. Now that's something I didn't even know about back in the day. But taking regular daily objects and turning them into transforming type toys in environments, a lot of fun. Alright, now more Turtles. Now I do want to say that they keep expanding the Turtle line as they go. Here I really kind of picked up on the Foot Cruiser. I think that's really awesome. I'm going to be reviewing that on my channel eventually. Pretty soon. It's a really cool vehicle. One of the best, if not the best vehicle they made in that toy line. It is awesome, and I did not appreciate it back in the day for what it was, but it is pretty cool. And more Turtle stuff, the blimp and all that. Great, excellent stuff. Lots of fun. Taking up almost the entire 2 pages. Well, it did take up 2 pages in this catalog. So we got to see some Rock Lords, some Wrestlers, some Muscles. Muscles were just tiny little figures, but this is something like I don't ever remember seeing Sunman, Rulers of the Sun, in catalogs. And now that you've got Mattel putting those out on the shelves right now, to see them in these old catalogs, that's quite a bit of fun to see that come out. But also, Rock Lords, I remember them. I definitely do. So let me know what you think about these pictures, these wish books. Does it bring back any memories? Do you remember seeing this? If you remember looking at these 6 times a day like I did, and do you still even have your catalogs from back in the day? Hopefully this brought back some memories, and hopefully you have a great Christmas into the new year and into a wonderful 2023. Like and subscribe. Teddy Hanger out.